The first two nights of Passover looked and felt very different for millions of Jews around the world this year. Under social distancing restrictions due to the coronavirus, many families had to hold their seders through a webcam. Passover is usually a holiday where families come together to celebrate the Jewish exodus from Egypt more than 3,000 years ago. For more, I am joined by Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum. She's the lead rabbi at New York City's congregation Beit Torah. Rabbi, thank you so much for being with us. I'm sure you were on one of those webcam seders.
Absolutely.
How was that experience for you? And what advice do you have for people who might be having a hard time being away from their families during this holiday?
Indeed, on the first night of Passover on Wednesday night, we had a Seder with 500 guests, 500 computers. So in fact, many more people than that. And I have to say, at first, I was skeptical that we could really create something that felt holy and sacred, given the strange context we're in and the technology that we had to use. But you know something? It was really moving. And we used the technology to the best of our advantage. And we were able to reach, we had people from many different countries all over New York City, where I'm based, and from my apartment. And I felt like I could invite 500 people into my apartment and not have to do the dishes or cook for everyone. So there were some small advantages. But what we tried to do is to create a context in which people could accept the reality in which we live, and then go through the rituals which we have as a Jewish people, which have so much resonance for each of us. And while it's very painful to be physically distant, we really focus on how to be spiritually connected. And we had family members who were located in many different cities joining us and being together for the Seder from all over the country and, in fact, the world.
So I'm curious about, sort of the food restrictions that accompanied this holiday this time around, because, of course, as part of the Passover tradition, Jews are required not to eat bread or other products with leavening agents in them. And due to COVID-19, some may not have been in a position to properly stock their shelves for the holiday. So what do you say to those who might feel disappointed that they couldn't, hold to those Passover sort of rules because they simply couldn't make it to the grocery store?
We're all facing issues of disappointment in this moment in history. We're so disappointed that things aren't the way we would want them to be. And I think this holiday, this festival, teaches us over and over again, Dayenu. It is enough. It's enough to make sure we're taking care of ourselves, and physical safety is the most important thing in Jewish tradition. And people have to let it go. If they're not able to go to the grocery store, we have to make do. People were very creative. Some people actually did cutouts for the proper ritual objects for the Seder plate so that they could have the image. They drew in advance images. Somebody else drew a picture of somebody and called him Bitter Herb instead of Bitter Herbs, to try and have a sense of humor about trying to make up for what we don't have. Ultimately, it's the spiritual message of this holiday which matters. And we have to accept our limitations, and we have to just be gentle with ourselves and do the best we can. And as I said to the Seder of hundreds and hundreds of people who gathered with me Wednesday night, collectively, we were managing to get all the ritual objects together. And that is Dayenu, good enough. Collectively, we're able to come together to celebrate plagues in times past, in the middle of a plague now, and know that just as our ancestors had hope and resilience for liberation, so too we have to build on that hope and resilience for today.
Well, going back to the history, I know that another aspect of the holiday might have had some special resonance this year. According to the ancient text that is recited at the Seder, the Israelites escaped Egypt only after a series of 10 plagues. And in fact, the Jewish people were commanded to stay home under quarantine while these plagues were going on. Is that something that was noted?
Indeed, it is. And so are so many different aspects of this. And we as a people have in our DNA, we know in our muscle memory what it's like to suffer, what it's like to experience conditions in which our ancestors suffered. From the moment of the story of the Israelites leaving Egypt, experiencing slavery for 400 years, and the plagues and quarantine, and then emerging to be able to build a future. So that's what we must do now. We must have hope. We must build towards a future and know that others in the future will look back on us, and hopefully they will experience that we did not give up or give in, that we continued to build a foundation for the future, just as our ancestors did for us.
And so, Rabbi, what do you think is the biggest thing that people, not just Jews, but all of us, can take away from this COVID-19 experience? And in what ways do you think this will change us moving forward?
I deeply believe that there's something to learn from everything. The most difficult circumstances in our life often are the ones which shape us, and the ones in our personal lives which have been so difficult to live through, we can look back on when we have perspective and say, wow, that moment helped me to become the person I am. I think we each have to recognize that what is external, and things over which we have no control, but understand that none of us can control the day of our death, but everyone can control what we do with whatever time we have to be alive. And we must fill our time with things that are of the most, at essence, decent and good and holy, and reflect God's most deep prayer for us, that we imitate the godly, that those who reach out to do good in the world, the healers, those who are trying to be helpful, the smiles that we can offer each other, the food, the love, the calls, the connection. This is representing the freedom that the holiday of Passover gives to us. We are free to interpret the moment in time we are in as we can. We must be resilient and full of hope and build for the future.
Well, Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum, we thank you so much for joining us. We also, in our family, did a virtual Easter via Zoom, and it was surprisingly moving. I didn't think that it would have that resonance for me, because it seemed like it would be so distant, but it was surprisingly moving just to see everyone's faces together on the screen. Exactly. So thank you for joining us and talking a bit about the spiritual.
Blessings to you.
Thank you so much.